Hey everyone, so today we're going to be working on this Vitz and we're going to be replacing the brake pads. So as you can see, we're already taken off this side. It's very easy to do it on this car, but if you're not familiar on how to work on your brakes, I would not recommend attempting it because brakes are a dangerous component. So if you don't know what you're doing, take it into a workshop. So with that disclaimer out of the way, now I'll show you on the other side on what to do and what tools are required. So these are the tools you require. You don't need much. Depending on what kind of wheels you have fitted, you'll either have a 19 millimeter nut or a 21 that you're required to remove the wheels off the vehicle. On this particular one, it's a 21. You'll need a 14 to undo the brake caliper bolt and swing up the caliper, which I'll show you. A ratchet, extension, you might need an extension, and you'll need a 17 in order to hold where the glide pin is. There's a 17 mil to hold it on this end, and then you use the 14 to open it. And if you've got power tools, it makes life that much easier. And also at the same time, if you're going to be changing your brake fluid, get some brake fluid as well, because that'll be a good time to replace the fluid at the same time. And you might also need a tool similar to this to compress the piston back, but you can get away with a set of pliers. A set of large pliers like this, you'll also get away with it, but I like to use the tool. And also lastly, you'll need an 8 millimeter wrench similar to this, just to open up the bleed nipple on each caliper when you change your fluid out and bleed out the whole system. It's also good practice if you got a little bit of Loctite 243 medium grade thread locker, just to put a dab on the bolt. So on this caliper bolt here, if you just put a dab on it, and this goes back here onto the glide pin over here, just a little bit. Another important thing is to use the caliper and just measure up your disc or rotor. If you're using the same rotor, make sure it's in good condition. Make sure there's no lip here. So if there's an excessive lip, you'd either want to get it machined or you'd want to get this replaced. And like I said, just go around and just measure it. So go around, measure the whole thing. The minimum spec for this rotor is 19 millimeters. And a new one measures in at 22. So I've gone ahead and remeasured this. I've gone ahead and measured it at multiple points around the whole rotor, and it comes in at about 21 mil, so it's still within spec. So we can proceed and use this one again. So just like that, you want to hold that there and then undo that bolt. Now we'll just swing the caliper up. So now notice how far the piston's pushed out, and now if you inspect the brake pads, look how low this is. So it was caught just in time before it's basically metal on metal. So if this brake pad material got worn out any further, it will be metal on metal. So it's this side here that is the lowest point. It's stuck. So it just pulls out like so, and now we'll just remove the back one. So now we'll go ahead and clean the shims. So make sure you clean them all really well. This one was serviced not long ago, so the glide pins and everything was serviced, so we won't need to touch that. But if your glide pins, so if your caliper is not moving smoothly like that, similarly for the bottom one as well, so if it's not moving in and out smoothly like that, then you'll want to remove it and give it a good clean and put new grease in there. So like I said, this was already done last time. The shim's already cleaned, so we'll just be giving a light clean. But if yours is corroded or rusted, or if these shims look like in poor condition, then replace them all. Once we finish cleaning that, we'll go ahead and push the piston back. When pushing the piston back, make sure you leave this cap semi-open. And it's also a good time, like I said, if you want to change your brake fluid, now is the time you can suck this all out, fill it up with new fluid, and we'll bleed it out. So we're just giving the shims a good clean, because we're going to be transferring it over. So these are the new brake pads. They're DB 1820s. It might be different on your Vitz. I'll be spraying some of this. This is not a must, but we'll be putting this on the back of it. So we'll let this sit for about 2-3 minutes, let it get a bit tacky, and then we'll go and put the shims transferred over. It just helps keep the shims there. Like I said, it's not a must that you have to do it. We have it, so we use it. Otherwise, you can just use the grease that comes with it. So if you get grease with your particular brake pad setup, you can use that. You can use something like this. It's a specific brake grease, and just make sure you only use a little tiny bit, not too much. So now we'll be compressing that piston back in. We'll be using the tool, as I showed you earlier, and just using a brake pad. So use the back of the brake pad. If you're reusing your brake pads, I wouldn't recommend doing it, but because we're throwing these brake pads out, you can use it like this. So you want to compress the piston as far back as it goes, because we've got new pads going on. And while you're pushing it back, just make sure you watch the brake fluid. You don't want it overflowing and damaging your paint or similar. So just keep that in mind. Yeah, notice how it's fully back. That's what you want. And we'll go ahead and give this a clean as well. Just wipe it down with brake cleaner. And wipe down the shims like I showed you, and then we'll grease up the brake pads. So remember, you just want a little bit of grease, so you start off by just dabbing it. So this one is on the piston, so that's why we just follow that same pattern, and then this one is on the outer pad. So notice here, you don't need to grease up the whole thing. And the idea is never to put too much, just a little bit. Notice how it moved freely, so that's what you want to see. It should always move freely. Always check and make sure it moves freely in and out like you just saw. And now for comparison, that's the new pads. And don't forget what I said about the rotors. If they need to be machined or replaced, now is a good time to do it. And this is torqued to 34 Newton meters or 25 foot-pounds. And if you want to double check, move the caliper in and out, just to make sure it's free and it's moving back and forth. That's what you want to see. It should always be moving freely in and out. So we have this vacuum pump with the external canister, that we're going to be using to remove the brake fluid, the old one. You can use a syringe or anything similar just to suck it out, whatever you have. Now we'll go ahead and top up the brake fluid and we'll bleed it out. So we'll start from the furthest away. So currently the passenger side is furthest away from the master cylinder, so we'll do that first, then move to the driver's side. So this is the bleed nipple at the back there. So it's an 8mm spanner like I showed you earlier, or box wrench. So you want to put it there, get your bleed bottle ready with your clear vacuum pipe, and if you find it's excessively tight, you can use a spanner like this and just open a little bit, and then you can go ahead and use your box wrench or spanner. So we're going to be using the two-man method of bleeding. So if you want to see the full video on how this works, I'll leave a link in the description below. But basically what you do is I'll be pumping the brakes about 5-6 times, and then I'll be holding it till it goes down. So I'll be holding it firmly, and then he'll be opening up the bleed nipple, and once he opens it up, the brake pedal will go down, and only when he tells me to leave and release will I release it. That's when he closes the bleed nipple back in. So now I'm pumping now. I'm going to pump it slowly till you build pressure. Fully in, fully out. Now I'm holding, open. Now when he opened it, I felt the brake pedal go further down. And now, after he said close, now I'll slowly release it. And I'll repeat the process about 5 times, because we're also going to be changing the fluid like this as well. Pump. Hold. I'm opening. Closed. Pump. Hold. Pump. Hold. Pump. Hold. Check the brake fluid level and top it up if needed. Now that we've finished bleeding both sides, we'll go ahead, put the tires back on, take it for a drive, bed the brakes in, and make sure everything is fine. Also notice that, in case anyone wants to know, this is where we jacked it up from, underneath at the cross member, and this is where the jack stands go. Just over here at the notches, where it's the strengthened point of the body. This side and the other side. When we drop the vehicle down, that's when the reservoir will be leveled, so we'll check it again and top it up as needed. Hope this video was of some help to you. If it was, do like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more interesting car and camper related content. So the final torque will be done with the torque wrench once the vehicle's back down on the ground or on the ramp. Just check the wheels for binding. So just what you do is push the shift lock down and then just bring the vehicle into neutral, and now we'll go ahead and spin the wheel outside. We're just spinning and checking, making sure it's free and it's not getting bound or caught by the pad or anything similar. So this particular wheel and setup gets torqued to 110 Newton meters, and generally that's what they all are, but just check with your user spec on your particular vehicle. So again, it's 110 Newton meters.